Everybody, and hope everybody's doing good. Thank you for watching as usual. I had some interesting thoughts I wanted to share as far as like um, what is our memory? What is our soul, like our database? It's like we go through life without really stopping to analyze it. And I think it's just because it's a seamless part of what we are. Remember, so everything is dualistic. So we are both physical and non-physical. Um, we have our physical bodies and our emotions basically, and everything, our physiological half of ourselves. But we have a very real non-physical um, portion of ourselves too. Our mind, our memories, our data, our souls, that sort of thing. Um, that which stores and allows us to experience this reality. And I found the idea of um, thoughts and knowledge very interesting because when you can take any human being and then raise them in any country and they'll pick up that language. So we are empty shells, physically, and then we have this database, this very malleable form of energy, meaning it can absorb so much information. We can pick up stuff around us, or we could do it through focused teaching or learning. But it all gets stored conceptually, in a manner where we're taught to think and use logic to go about our day-to-day lives, right? But um, there's so much information in there. And just through pure memory recall, and we do it all the time in the moment, when we think or think about what to do or say, it's like we draw forth relevant information that we have stored in order to move forward. And the more knowledge we learn and the more things we experience, the more advanced and more detailed and wisdom can form over time through the continued experience and analysis of everything you go through in life, things you observe as well. Like for example, like for me, like maybe about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, I guess, uh, approximately, I was thinking, when we think, do we really think about how we think? So in other words, like right now I'm having this conversation with you and like I know what I'm going to say generally, and some of it's kind of I didn't write any of this down, so I'm just kind of talking here based off memory, but I know which words to put together to convey my point, in other words. And um, sometimes I stop to think about what to say next. Now, here's a curious exercise. Like when you think, just think thoughts. And do you realize, or do you know? Because I never did until I started doing this out of pure curiosity. Um, how do you draw up your thoughts? Where does it? I mean, we all understand basic concepts like intent and focus and logic, knowledge, language, things that allow us to um, rationally form thoughts and live life and interact with others, right? But it's just amazing how much information we have stored and how we can draw that up at any given moment through pure focus. Even when you're like having a conversation, like a random conversation on the street that you weren't expecting, it's amazing how the mind works and how we can use it. So I challenge you to do this. This is interesting. Like, do you ever, if you want to, of course. So, but like when you think, how do you hear in your head? Like uh, where when you hear a thought form, is it in the center of your head? Do the words form one after another, or do they like kind of flow upwards, um, or do they seemingly come out of nowhere and just like randomly form in your head? What's interesting is I was reading about psychology and they talk about this sort of thing, you have your conscious mind and your subconscious and your preconscious. So remember, we have all kinds of knowledge stored, and our subconscious is just, whatever, all our knowledge that's down there. It's very active too. It's interesting because once you start to learn to listen to your mind and your own database, it's like throwing a rock in a pond, and then the water ripples. It's very fluid, and because remember, when we're talking to someone, it's a representation of our knowledge. And a lot of times when we're talking, we don't think about what we're going to say. We just kind of say it. We have the conversation, and sometimes we stop to think. So it's a bit of both. We don't think, but sometimes we do. We just kind of go with the flow in the moment. And so when you listen to your database, it's like, or your soul, it's constantly doing that. It's not static. It's not. The more you tune into that, and rather just kind of, instead of draw up information, you'll start to hear it chatter. So it's interesting. It's like hearing a second voice in your head. It's good to have that awareness because then you're not losing your mind or anything. You're just accessing your own database because there's a ton of stuff stored up here if you think about it, which is like a computer and how you access that. Subconscious is what we store as stored information. Conscious is how we think about things, of course, and how we act on things. Like, for example, this is good information to know too, because it could really help, especially when it did for me. Like once you start to experience anything beyond, anything supernatural, I guess, or spiritual in nature. Meaning, it's good to know where this stuff is coming from. Say I'm thinking about eating, for example, let's just say I'm a vegetarian. I'm not. I love meat. I love eating steak. But okay, anyways, let's just say that we're talking about being a vegetarian, right? So subconsciously, I'm like, okay, yeah, my database way down there, it stores information. I know what vegetables are. I know what meat is. I know how to differentiate it. So I know how to access that. My conscious mind is in vegetarian mode. If I see stuff, I will try to differentiate it so I can stick to my diet, in other words. So I know what is vegetarian and what is not. So my subconscious is like the collective knowledge base. The conscious is you acting on the portion of information in the manner you choose or you see fit. In other words, in this case, being a vegetarian. You have all this food information stored in your mind. Preconscious is simply the information that's there that you don't act on. And it's literally, preconscious is right on the other side of your conscious thoughts. And it makes sense because, like quotes like, it's right at the front of my mind, for example. You can, like, when you start to think about things, information kind of starts to well up or bubble up to the top because that's what you're thinking about. It's just like a computer. It's kind of interesting. So, for example, and this kind of dreaming is a good example. I'll get to that in just a minute here. So when we're using our conscious mind to focus on the information that's stored, we're only using it in a certain way. But right on the other side of that, like if I see a salad and I'm like, oh, I'm going to eat it because that's a salad because I'm a vegetarian. Stored with that information is the idea that steak is meat, right? Like right on the other side of that thought, oh, there's a salad, it's all vegetables, I'll eat it. But right behind that is, as long as there's no like chicken in there, or steak or anything like that. So steak is meat, I don't eat that, therefore I don't like it. So the stuff is stored in a very logical manner as well. Now, when you're dreaming, this information is, because when we're awake and we're conscious, this information is under our control. Now, this is why dreams are so random sometimes. And it can be, you can learn to control them or bring your dreams under control. It's something called lucid dreaming. I've experienced it very, very, very rarely, randomly, but I guess it's something you can train yourself to do. Same with astral projection. And so when you're dreaming, say you go to bed like right after you eat a salad and you're like, oh, this is great. I just had a dream about eating the most delicious vegetarian salad ever. Or maybe you had a nightmare about eating meat. So, but for some reason you're like, why? Because, I ate a salad and it was great. That's your preconscious That's you accessing your preconscious rather than your most recent memories, in other words. So remember, there's things you just store information. What makes you you is how you access it, and right on the other side of that is the ways that you don't access it, in other words. So the information you do choose to live as, and then that which is stored information. So if that makes sense, I hope I said it right. Conscious, preconscious is right on the other side of that while you're thinking something through. It's like stored information. Your subconscious is really all information that's stored, and how you choose to store it as well. So it's really just information, and it's how you store it, which defines your sense of self. So there's that. And I've noticed too, like when I'm trying to practice with like spiritual communication, like psychic powers and all that cool stuff. Emotions are a very integral and very deep part of who we are. So we store things emotionally too, like what scares us or what we love or what we hate. So that's why sometimes there can be logic to our dreams. Like, let's say you go to bed and you had the best salad ever, and then you go to bed in a good mood, and that's what you dream about. Well, let's say it's the opposite. You go to bed, and then you're like, oh no, I forgot. I'm worried about my week, or I'm stressed about my bills, and you go to bed. And so you go to bed in a state of worry. But since you just ate a salad, now you start worrying about like what not to eat. Your mind starts, because your mind can move and process and talk and chatter like while you're awake. You're not even aware of it, or when you're asleep. When you're asleep, these are the dreams that you start to become aware of. That's why they can be so seemingly random. But emotions, like if you start to become aware of your dreams, if you go to bed in a state of worry, the last thing you had was a salad, you could be worried about, oh man, I had a nightmare about eating chicken last night. Like makes sense, like it, because these things are at the forefront of your physical and your mental mind, in front of your mind, whether you're aware of it or not. So, and I've experienced this too. Like for me, it's very hard to try and hold and listen to silence when I'm trying to listen to an answer to something. And it's really weird because I've heard this kind of emanate from my own self. And this explains how other psychics too pick up on energy from other people. But because information can literally flow out of you sometimes. Like when I'm trying to listen to a voice that's outside my head, and I'm worrying like, God, I can't hear it word for word, and it's loud sometimes and it's not, and I start to get frustrated or angry or worried. Stuff that involves that starts to bubble up through my mind, and kind of like I can hear it at the front of my mind as if I'm the one thinking it, but I'm not. But it's what I would say if I said it out loud, in other words, because it's a direct representation of you, so I hear like right in the front of my mind, like, damn it, I can't hear. Oh, this sucks. I'll never get it right. This is frustrating. Is this voice saying yes, or is this voice saying no? And sometimes it makes me smile because that's how I talk, or that's how I think. But the very act of feeling a certain emotion can trigger these words, because now, it's putting you in that state. And those are the words you would explain to someone how you're feeling in the moment, for example. So I found that the way the mind and emotions work together as far as storing memory and accessing them, dreaming and also psychic abilities, like that, it's very interesting because it makes sense. There's a very simple logic to it, and how these things are accessed. And it explains too why there can be energetic interference, because I know sometimes I hear things wrong or sometimes I hear things correctly. So I'm trying to learn to do things in a quiet zone, or like a mode of peace and non-expectation, because sometimes if I start to think I know the answer, and then just as if you were trying to guess out loud, you can hear these guesses like in your head. I can like, right, it starts to come out, oh, maybe it's this, I'll bet you it's this, maybe it's not, it's probably this answer. And it's so frustrating sometimes, because then I start to hear all these possible answers and I might miss the actual answer, and it's all coming from me. So I've got to learn how to tune that out or calm it down. And I've noticed when watching other readings too online that like this information can emanate from people as well too, like and then the psychics will pick up on it. Like were you moving recently, or are you happy to be moving, or it feels like stressful for you? I feel stressful energy. So they can pick up on this. It's just like doing a reading. It's almost like talking to you without talking to you out loud. They can interact with your energy and using words or images, and that's partly what some readings involve. Not all, but when they say I see this, or I feel this, or I hear this, or what's going on with you in this area. It's literally, and this is interesting because I'm just learning to understand this too more and more. It's them literally having a conversation with your energy field, the emotional and mental aspects of it, and trying to translate what they're hearing and, asking you for validation. So it's really just, a lot of times it's just picking up someone's own energy, like as simple as that. Like if someone's like, oh, I'm so stressed because I'm moving, and they're like, oh man, I'm getting like stressful energy. Are you moving, or any big decisions coming up? And they're like, oh yeah, there really are. So it's like just being able to sense what they already know. It's just like talking to them physically out loud, but you're just using non-physical energy. So it's an interesting aspect of who we are as humans and how these things work. Anyways, I'm continuing and continuously trying to understand and experience these things. And sometimes it's great, sometimes it's like frustrating, I'm not gonna lie. But overall though, it's never not fascinating. I love this aspect of what we are, and there's so much to ourselves, I think, that goes unexplored or unmentioned, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a good thing. I think if you go through your life and it's just like, normal thoughts, and you're not sensitive to spiritual energy or that sort of thing, and you're doing your own thing physically, that's great. I think that's awesome, actually. But if you find that your, hobby lying in that area and you practice it, great. If you're just curious about it too, I think it's fascinating information. These little things that make us who we are and how they operate. So I thought it was cool stuff to share, and just thought I'd put that out there, get you thinking maybe, or see what your thoughts are on that sort of thing. So thanks for watching. Sorry I talked a little bit longer. I didn't have an agenda here. I just had, oh man, this is kind of cool. I've been turning this over recently. I kind of want to share and just put the information out there for people to watch. And, if you have any feedback or anything, of course, let me know. You can email or put them in the comments. I just love sharing this kind of information. So thank you again for watching, and really hope everyone's doing well, of course, as always. So thumbs up if you liked the video. Subscribe if you haven't. Let me know if you have any suggestions too, or ideas, or anything at all. And as always, take care, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.